measurement and definition of happiness. Okay, so let me talk about definition of happiness. Okay, a lot of people object to the term happiness, including Barbara Fredrickson that I talked about some time back, this Broaden and Build theory person, right? So she prefers the word positivity because she thinks happiness is too frivolous. You know, it's like smiley face. You know, that's like pretending as if you're happy, or at best, you know, it's going to be ephemeral. It's not going to last for a very long time. She'd much rather have something that's more long-lasting, like fulfillment or meaning or peace or tranquility, contentment, and so on. I'm using happiness here as a kind of a short word to represent all of these things. Okay, so think of happiness in my parlance as an umbrella term that captures not just pleasure, which we know is temporary, right? When you eat something good, for example, things like that, but also positivity, all the positive emotions that you can think of, like love and tranquility, peace, humor, laughter, interest, awe, gratitude, hope, serenity. You know, there's like maybe 20 of those, okay? So all of those, but also some things that are actually a little more complex, okay? So meaning, let's talk about this thing called meaning. What I refer to as meaning is the satisfaction you derive from doing good to other people, right? I think that everybody in this world, most human beings, unless you're a sociopath, right, or a psychopath, actually, you're going to derive positivity from helping other people, and we know this from our experience with our own immediate kith and kin, right? Our own family, our own close friends, but our capacity to be nice to other people is actually universal, I would say, okay? And it's partly because of our hardwiring. We have something called mirror neurons, right, which help us kind of put ourselves in other people's shoes. If you think about it, it's actually strange that you walk into a movie theater and you watch two people who you did not know from Adam, right? Who you know are acting out roles. It's not even their real life, right? And you watch that and you get so moved that you come out all teary-eyed, okay? And oh, they're so much in love, there's so much opposition, but in the end, they overcame all that, okay? And now they're together, and you want to be that agent of goodness and kindness after you see a movie like that, right? Okay, so that feeling of love that you see is because of those mirror neurons, okay? It's an artificial setup, you know that going in, and yet you can't help but be moved. That's because of mirror neurons. That's a hint at our capacity for being loving, kind, generous, and so on, okay? And that feeling that you experience when you see two other people being nice to each other, and that warmth, feeling of warmth and warm, fuzzy feeling, that's called elevation, okay? It's called elevation, and often it's associated with behaviors that you might think are not really indicative of happiness. You might actually be like tearing up, right? You might actually have a lump in your throat. You might be breathing a little bit heavily. To an external observer, you might not look very happy, but inside you know that this is a nice feeling. This is a warm feeling. This is a feeling of expansiveness. This is a feeling of wanting to do good to the world. And that's in a huge category of happiness for us, this thing called meaning, that I'm going to call meaning, which is being nice to other people. Makes you feel really expansive, makes you feel really good, right? And sometimes in the process of being nice to other people, you might have to go through displeasure, right? Or unhappiness, or yourself. Like, for example, you know, there's a time when this thing happened that I was with my son at an airport in India, and it was 3 a.m. and flights had gotten cancelled, and we were both really hungry, and we went to this cafeteria. There was just one samosa left, right? And I was super hungry, but he was hungry too, and I bought it and I gave it to him, and I was actually happy seeing him be happy, right? Even though I'd extended my displeasure, it made me happier at a higher level, right? So I'm deriving meaning out of this act, even though it's prolonging my displeasure. There's also another category called what I call purpose, which is doing something that's so intrinsically motivating for you that you lose track of time. You get so involved in the activity, so immersed in it, that you lose all self-consciousness, right? You and the activity kind of become one. You might look at the watch after 3 hours of doing that and say, wow, like 3 hours passed by. How did that happen? So these are called flow states, and they evoke a huge sense of purpose in us, okay? So when I talk about happiness, I'm talking about not just pleasure, not just positivity, I'm also talking about meaning and purpose. And in particular, it turns out meaning and purpose are super important if you want to be happy at work. Okay, obviously pleasure is important, but pleasure can't last for a very long time. Positive emotions are important, but they tend to have a shorter shelf life as well, especially things like hubristic pride, right? That you get from comparing yourself to other people and thinking you're superior to them. That doesn't last very long. Okay, but meaning and purpose has the potential to last a really long time. And so if you're hoping to be happy at work on a sustained basis, then you need to focus on meaning and purpose, it turns out, okay? So I talked about